Aerie conductor Velric Orwain snapped Calla Renn's Ember Tuning Fork in half before the first royal flight and held the broken metal high enough for every dragon trainer to see. The sound it made was small, too small for the High Dragon Aerie, where wings beat like storms against black cliffs and royal horns carved command through the morning fire. Too small for a court gathered under crimson banners, waiting to watch Dragon King Soryn Ash send 12 war dragons into formation above the crown peaks. Too small for men who believed only loud things could be true. Calla heard it anyway. A thin, wounded note. Not from the fork, from the dragons. She stood at the edge of the training stones with soot on her sleeves, ember dust beneath her nails, and half of the tuning fork still clenched in her hand. The other half lay near Velric's boot, glowing dull orange where the metal had broken. Around her, dragon handlers laughed because a listening tool looked harmless once broken. That was the cruelty of quiet things. Men only feared pain when it learned to scream. Velric smiled beneath the bronze conductor collar that marked him master of the Aerie's flight rituals. "There," he said. "The dragons survive." A few trainers laughed harder. Calla did not kneel for the broken half. Not yet. She looked beyond Velric, toward the 12 dragons chained along the eastern launch ledges. They were magnificent from a distance. Black, red, bronze, silver, and smoke. Blue bodies armored in scales. Heads lifted, wings folded with military discipline. Crowds loved them most when they stood still, because stillness looked like obedience from far away. Calla saw what stillness hid. The bronze female on the third ledge held her left wing too high. The old black drake near the southern torch line did not close his jaw fully, because one back tooth had cracked under a bit chain. The smoke-blue yearling kept both claws locked around the stone, because his shoulder trembled every time the flight horn warmed, and the king's crown dragon Veilthar stood above them all on the highest ledge, with gold harness straps shining against midnight scales, so perfectly silent that the court mistook him for strength. Calla had been trying to warn them for 3 weeks, not with drama, with records, with pain frequencies marked in charcoal margins, with quiet adjustments to harness tension, with the Ember Tuning Fork held near ribs, wing joints, scar tissue, and old burn seams until the metal trembled with notes no command horn could hear. The court called it fussing. The trainers called it softness. Velric called it disobedience disguised as care. Dragon King Soryn Ash had not spoken yet. He stood on the royal flight platform in black dragonbone armor, one hand resting on the obsidian rail, his dark cloak dragging in the airy wind like a torn shadow. He was broad, severe, and still in the way only dangerous kings could be still, as if every part of him had been trained not to move until something deserved fire. Ember gold eyes watched the broken fork, then Calla's face, then the silent crown dragon behind him. For one breath, Calla thought he had heard the same thing she had. Then Velric bowed to him. "Majesty, the lower listener has been frightening handlers with false pain. Notes before royal flight. Dragons answer command. They do not require lullabies from soot girls with kitchen metal." Laughter moved through the flight court. Lower listener. Soot girl. Kitchen metal. Calla felt the words strike and settle where old humiliations already lived. She was oath-bound to the Aerie, born from a line of quiet handlers who listened before dragons were forced to fly. Her mother had taught her that dragons did not lie about pain. Men did. Her grandmother had taught her that an obedient dragon could be dying if the sound above him was louder than the one inside his bones. But no one wanted women with careful ears near war. War liked horns. War liked formations. War liked wings opening on command. Calla lifted the broken fork half. "Do not launch the eastern line." Velric's smile thinned. She continues. "Their pain. Note is buried under the flight rhythm." A murmur passed through the court. Pain note was not a word spoken before foreign officers, border lords, and noble riders waiting to purchase future dragon contracts. Pain was private. if it existed at all. Pain was weakness. Pain was blamed on handlers, age, weather, or lack of discipline. Soryn's gaze sharpened. Buried by what? Calla turned toward him. The force of his attention was worse than mockery. His dragon blood pressed into the air, hot, ancient, controlled until it felt like iron held inside flame. The dragon sensed him before people did. Even chained, even hurting, they tightened toward his presence. By forced flight rituals, she said. Velric stepped in quickly. Majesty, she mistakes training resonance for injury. Calla looked at the eastern line. The bronze female cannot take full lift. Velric laughed once. She flew yesterday. She obeyed yesterday. The court went silent. Calla knew at once she had gone too far, not because she was wrong, because the High Dragon Aerie had built its pride on the difference between obeying and being well, and she had spoken where the two did not match. Velric bent, picked up the broken half of the fork, and turned it between his gloved fingers. This is what fear sounds like when servants polish it. He flung the broken half across the stones. It struck near the launch ledge and skidded toward the chained bronze dragon. The dragon flinched. Only Calla noticed. No, Soryn noticed too. His fingers tightened on the rail. Velric saw the king see it, and his voice hardened. Majesty, permission to proceed with royal formation. If the dragons launch cleanly, let this listening superstition end before the court. There it was. The trap. Not pain, now. Authority. If Soryn stopped the flight, foreign officers would see doubt. Border lords would whisper that the Dragon King needed a soot-stained lower listener to read his own Aerie. Velric had made the choice look simple. Command or care, strength or shame. Soryn looked at Calla. Not gently. Not protective. A king measuring whether her warning was courage or threat. Can you prove it before launch? He asked. Calla looked at the broken fork in her hand. Not with enough time. Not with Velric standing between her and the dragons. Not with the pain note buried under ritual hum and command horns already warming behind the launch crews. No, she said. Not before launch. Velric smiled. Soryn's face closed. Begin formation, the Dragon King said. For one breath. Calla heard nothing. Then the flight horns heated. Handlers pulled chains from the launch rings. The eastern dragons opened their wings in perfect order. The court exhaled with relief, because obedience was beautiful when viewed from a safe distance. Calla stepped toward the bronze female. Velric caught her arm. Enough. She looked at his hand. Then at Soryn. The king saw the grip. He did not stop it. Calla's last small hope went very quiet. The horns sounded. The eastern line leaped. The bronze dragon lifted first. Beautiful for 3 wing beats. Then her left wing folded. Not fully. Just enough. Pain moved through the dragon's body like fire under armor. The broken half of the tuning fork near the launch ledge began to glow. The half in Calla's hand answered. A single note rose between them. It was not music. It was not song. It was a frequency so thin the court covered its ears too late. A buried ember note carrying through chain, bone, scar, and scale. The bronze dragon screamed in the sky. The old black drake lowered his head. The smoke-blue yearling dropped to his belly. One by one, every wounded dragon in the High Dragon Aerie turned away from the royal flight line. Even Veilthar, the crown dragon, lowered his massive head toward Calla Renn. The court stopped breathing. Across the broken fork, ember light burned one warning into the air. The eastern flight line carried buried pain before royal formation was cleared. Soryn looked from his kneeling crown dragon to Calla, still held by Velric's hand. His voice did not soften. Who cleared my dragons to fly over pain they were trained not to show? Velric Orwain answered before the ember warning finished burning across the broken tuning fork. Majesty, he said, voice sharp enough to cut through the dragon's low distress. Pain after launch is not proof of danger before launch. Every royal formation carries strain. The eastern line is young, eager, and over-responsive to sound. The bronze female circled badly above the first ring of cliffs, her left wing dragging half a beat behind the right. 2 handlers pulled emergency guide chains from the ledge. The old black drake had not moved from his post. The smoke-blue yearling lay flat against the launch stone. Claws dug so deep into the black rock that sparks trembled under them. Calla Renn stood with Velric's hand still clamped around her arm. She did not pull away quickly. She looked at his fingers first, then at Dragon King Soryn Ash. Soryn saw the grip. His expression did not soften. That mattered. A soft king in front of commanders would only make her the excuse for another kind of cruelty. But his gaze dropped to Velric's hand, and the air around the royal platform darkened with heat. "Release her," Soryn said. Velric obeyed, slowly, as if obedience could still look like dignity when forced. Calla stepped away from him, the broken half of the Ember Tuning Fork warm in her palm. The note had faded, but not gone. It lived along the split metal-like pain held between teeth. Soryn looked at her. "Answer my question." Calla met his eyes. "I did not clear them. I know." The words struck harder than apology would have, because he had known enough to ask, and not enough to stop the launch. Velric bowed toward the king. "The eastern flight line was cleared through standard formation rhythm, Majesty. The warning is a reaction to fatigue, not buried injury." "Training fatigue," one senior handler echoed quickly. A few others nodded, because fear taught men to agree with power before truth had finished speaking. Calla turned toward them. "Fatigue fades when the body rests. Buried pain returns when command covers it." Velric's mouth tightened. "You speak in lower-deck riddles because you cannot read military flight. I read what your horns are drowning." The court stilled. The command horns along the eastern rail still glowed from use, their bronze mouths smoking faintly. They had sounded over the first lift, pouring rhythm into dragon bones, teaching wounded wings to move when they should have stopped. Soryn followed Calla's stare. "Explain." Velric stepped forward. "Majesty." Allowing her to explain gives false weight to servant superstition. Calla did not look at Velric. "Then let the dragons explain through the marks he did not erase." Soryn's eyes narrowed. "What marks?" Calla lifted the broken fork half. "Fork resonance. Eastern flight rhythm. Buried pain. Note. Bronze female wing strain. Crown dragon silence. Clearance horn timing." Velric laughed once, too loudly. "She lists words as if order makes them evidence." "No," Calla said. "Order tells you which lie came first." The bronze dragon shrieked above them as the emergency chain caught her harness and dragged her away from the outer wind. Her left wing did not open fully, even when the handlers shouted command phrases. The court heard the failure now. It had become loud enough to deserve fear. Calla hated that. Dragons should not have to scream before kings believed them. Soryn looked to the eastern ledge. "Bring her down." Velric turned sharply. "Majesty, landing her before the formation completes will signal weakness." Soryn's voice cooled. "Flying her with a failing wing will signal stupidity." The order moved. Handlers pulled the bronze female down through the lower ring. She landed hard on the black stone, one talon skidding, wing folding close to her ribs. Calla took one step toward her. Velric blocked her path. "No." Soryn did not raise his voice. "Move." Velric's jaw flexed. He moved. Calla crossed the training stones, feeling hundreds of eyes follow the soot on her sleeves, the broken fork in her hand, the quiet authority they still wanted to call insolence. She stopped beside the bronze female's left shoulder. The dragon's eye rolled toward her, gold, dark, and furious with the shame of being seen weak before commanders. Calla lowered her voice. "I know." The dragon's breath shuddered. Calla did not touch the wing. Not yet. Pain deserved permission, even from a creature bred under command. She held the broken fork near the joint between shoulder and wing bone. The ember metal trembled faintly. Velric said, Anyone can make broken metal shake. Calla moved the fork away from the joint. The trembling stopped. She brought it near the wing bone again. The metal trembled. A thin note lifted, barely audible, more pressure than sound. The bronze dragon's jaw opened, not in rage, but relief so sharp it looked like grief. Calla looked back at the court. This is wing strain. Velric scoffed. A post-launch strain. Calla shifted the fork lower, near the harness groove beneath the wing root. The ember note changed. Deeper, buried, older than the launch. No, she said. This is the note. Soryn stepped off the royal platform. The movement sent a ripple through the court. Dragon Kings did not descend for lower listeners. They made others climb. Soryn came to the bronze female side, black armor catching firelight, cloak dragging over training ash. The dragon watched him with one eye, still and wary. Not obedient. Vare. Calla saw that strike him. She did not soften it. Listen here, she said. Velric hissed. You do not command the king. Soryn did not look at him. No. She is commanding the evidence. Calla pressed the broken fork near the harness groove again. The note returned. Soryn stood close enough that she could feel the heat of him, the old dragon blood in his body, answering the frequency like a locked door hearing its key. His face remained hard, but something inside his eyes shifted. Not tenderness, recognition. That was under the harness before flight, he said. Yes, Velric cut in. All harness grooves carry pressure. Not this frequency. Calla turned toward the eastern horn tower. Bring the clearance horn. No one moved. She looked at Soryn, not asking, waiting to see what he would do with the truth he had demanded. Soryn said, Bring it. The horn was brought down by two handlers, its bronze curve still hot from ritual use. Calla placed the broken fork near its mouth. Nothing. Velric exhaled in triumph. Then Calla turned the fork and held the cracked side toward the horn's inner ember seam. The metal shivered. A buried tone answered from inside the horn. The smoke-blue yearling on the ledge whimpered and covered his head with one wing. Calla's throat tightened, but her voice stayed steady. This horn carried the training rhythm over the pain note. Velric's face sharpened. It carried formation command. You did not command strength, Calla said. You commanded silence and called it flight. The words moved through the Aerie like falling ash. Soryn looked toward Veilthar. The crowned dragon had not lifted his head from the stone. He watched Calla with one vast ember eye, silent as a sealed wound. Calla walked toward him. The court recoiled. Do not, Velric snapped. The crowned dragon answers only royal blood. Calla stopped, at a respectful distance from Veilthar's lowered head. He is not answering me. Soryn's voice came behind her. Then what is he doing? Calla held up the broken fork. It trembled before she brought it near him. He's holding his pain where no one can punish it. Veilthar's nostrils flared. Soryn went still. Calla pointed to the crowned dragon's throat harness, where gold ceremonial bands crossed over old dark scales. His silence is not discipline. Velric's voice lowered. Careful. Calla did not turn. It is containment. The fork note deepened. Not loud. Never loud. But every wounded dragon in the eastern line shifted toward it, as if a truth below hearing had finally been given shape. Calla named the order clearly. Bronze female wing strain before launch. Pain note buried under harness groove. Clearance horn carrying formation rhythm over injury frequency. Smoke blue yearling reacting to the same hidden tone. Crowned dragon silent before command, not after. Royal formation cleared without Eastern pain test. Only then did the broken fork answer fully. Ember light crawled along both snapped halves, one in Calla's hand, one still lying near the launch ledge. The two broken pieces did not join. They did not heal. They simply held the same thin frequency until the air between them burned with a single line of ember script. Royal formation was cleared before the Eastern pain note was tested. Soryn looked from the clearance horn to Velric Orwain. His voice did not soften. "Who signed my formation clearance before the Eastern Pain Note was tested?" Velric Orwain looked at the clearance horn, as if bronze could still pretend it had only carried command. The ember script burned between the two broken halves of Calla Renn's tuning fork, thin and merciless in the air. Royal formation was cleared before the Eastern Pain Note was tested. No one in the High Dragon Aerie laughed now. The eastern ledges had gone strangely quiet except for the rough breathing of dragons trying not to show what had already been heard. The bronze female lay with her left wing drawn close. The smoke-blue yearling kept his head covered beneath one trembling wing. The old black drake watched the court with one cracked golden eye. Above them all, Veilthar remained lowered, not kneeling like devotion, not choosing anyone, only holding still around pain that had finally been named. Dragon King Soryn Ash stood beside the clearance horn, black armor stained by ember light. "Who signed my formation clearance before the Eastern Pain Note was tested?" His voice did not soften. Velric's answer came controlled, but the control had edges now. "Majesty, Pain Note testing is a lower listener caution. It has never been a royal formation requirement." Calla felt the old sentence open like a wound. Not required. That was how pain disappeared in places that knew exactly how to hide it. Not denied, not disproven. Simply moved outside the line where authority had to care. Soryn looked at Calla. "Is that true?" She did not give him the comfort of hurry. "It is true that conductors stopped calling it required." Velric's eyes narrowed. "Because the practice was unreliable." "No," Calla said. "Because it interrupted launch schedules." The senior handlers shifted. A few looked down. One looked toward the eastern horn tower, as if bronze might rescue him from memory. Velric turned to the court. "Majesty, this is precisely why lower listeners should not be permitted to speak over conductors. She cannot distinguish ritual structure from injury panic." Calla stepped toward the clearance horn. "Then bring the Eastern Pain Test slate." Velric's jaw tightened. Small, fast. Soryn saw it. Calla saw him see it. The broken tuning fork did not flare. It did not leap from her hand. It waited, warm against her palm, carrying only a faint tremor. Soryn said, "Bring it." A young handler hesitated. "Majesty, the Eastern Pain Test slate is kept with minor maintenance." "Bring it." This time, the command rang through the Aerie without ceremony. The handler ran. Velric folded his hands behind his back. The absence of a lower notation does not invalidate royal clearance. The formation was approved through conductor authority. Calla looked at him. "A blank pain record is not proof of health. It is proof no one wanted to listen." The word struck harder than the fork's note, because every trainer understood them. Pain could be ignored quietly, but a blank record could be read by anyone. The young handler returned with a narrow black slate bound in red leather, its edges scorched from being stored too near horn embers. He held it like something dirty and dangerous. Calla did not take it from him at once. She looked to the bronze female. The dragon's eye remained open, fixed on her. "I will read," Calla said. "Not treat." Velric seized the distinction. "There, she admits she offers no solution." Calla turned the broken fork half in her hand. "A wound cannot be solved by pretending it began after obedience failed." Soryn's face remained carved from shadow and fire. "Read." The handler placed the slate on the flat black stone between the clearance horn and the bronze dragon's injured wing. Calla knelt, not because the court had lowered her, but because pain lived close to the ground when bodies could no longer carry pride. She opened the slate. The first pages held old entries: wing heat, harness pressure, joint resonance, ember response, pain note range, lower listener initials, date before launch, careful records, useful records. Then the current ascent page appeared. Blank. A pale scrape crossed the surface where charcoal should have been fixed under heat. Velric said immediately, The slate was unnecessary because the eastern line passed conductor rhythm. Calla looked at the blank page. Conductor rhythm is not a pain test. It proves readiness. It proves obedience to sound. Velric's expression hardened. Dragons are war creatures, not court infants. At the word infants, the bronze female's tail struck the ground once, weakly but with unmistakable anger. The court recoiled. Calla did not smile. "That is not agreement," she said. "That is pain." Soryn stepped closer to the slate. "What should be here?" Calla pointed to the empty column. "Fork resonance before harness lock." Then the next. Eastern wing stress after first command rhythm. Then the next. Pain note response before clearance horn. Then the final line. Listener mark, confirming the dragon can lift without buried injury. Soryn's eyes moved over the blanks, slowly, as if each empty line had become heavier than ink. Velric said, "Majesty, she is dramatizing clerical absence." "No," Calla said. "I am showing timing." She lifted the clearance horn and turned it so the inner ember seam faced the slate. The broken fork trembled, faint but exact. This horn was sealed after rhythm test. She pointed to a bronze stamp near the horn's base. "Command rhythm seal." Velric nodded stiffly. "Correct." Calla placed the horn beside the pain test slate. The Eastern pain page was blank when that seal was struck. "You cannot prove sequence from absence." Calla held the fork near the horn stamp. The metal hummed. Then she held it over the blank pain slate. Nothing. She moved it to the scraped mark at the top of the page. A small ember tremor answered. Not full script. Not revelation. Only a resonance left behind by something removed. Calla leaned closer. There was a slate mark. Velric's voice sharpened. "Old residue." "No." She held the fork over the scrape. "Fresh ember scrape. Same morning." A murmur moved through the handlers. Soryn looked at the young handler who had brought the slate. "Who scraped it?" The boy went gray. Velric spoke first. "He does not know. Slates are cleaned between rituals." Calla looked at the boy. "Did you clean this one?" His mouth opened. No sound came. Velric's gaze cut toward him. Calla saw it. Soryn saw her see it. The king's voice dropped. "Answer." The boy swallowed. "No, Majesty." Velric's face did not move. Calla turned the slate to the bottom corner. There, half hidden beneath a smear of ash, a conductor stamp had pressed too hard into the binding leather. A sharp-winged sigil inside a bronze ring. Velric's mark. Calla touched nothing. "Conductor stamp," Velric said. "All official formation materials bear my office." "Yes." Calla pointed to the stamp, then the blank page. "Your office sealed an empty test." The test was waived. By whom? Velric's silence lasted less than a breath, but everyone heard it. Soryn's gaze became lethal. By whom? Velric recovered. By conductor authority. Under emergency formation efficiency. Calla looked toward the eastern ledges. There was no emergency until the dragons were forced to fly over what you refused to hear. The old black drake exhaled smoke through his teeth. The sound was low, bitter, and almost human in its contempt. Calla moved the broken fork along the bronze female's harness groove again, then to the clearance horn, then to the blank slate, building the sequence in the air rather than letting the fork speak for her. Wing strain before launch, harness groove holding buried pain, command rhythm sealed over the note, clearance horn warmed before pain response was entered, Eastern pain test slate blank, fresh scrape, where morning resonance should be. Velric Orwin's conductor stamp on the same blank record. The fork brightened only after she had finished reading. Ember light crawled over the slate's empty columns and gathered in the scraped place. The air trembled, thin as a held breath. Then a single line burned across the blank page, not loud, not musical, but exact. Eastern pain test record was left blank before formation clearance was signed. Soryn looked from the empty slate to Velric Orwain. His voice did not soften. Who signed a royal flight over a blank pain record? The eastern ledges answered the blank record with silence. Not peace. Silence. The bronze female, Runeth, held her left wing tight against her ribs. The smoke-blue yearling kept his head hidden beneath one trembling wing. The old black drake watched the court with a cracked golden eye. High above them, Veilthar remained lowered on the crown ledge, his midnight throat bound in gold straps that shone too cleanly against old scale. Calla Renn held the Eastern pain test slate, while the Ember script faded from its empty page. Eastern pain test record was left blank before formation clearance was signed. Dragon King Soryn Ash stood beside the clearance horn. Who signed a royal flight over a blank pain record? His voice did not soften. Velric Orwain bowed with controlled precision. Majesty, the pain test was waived under conductor authority. The dragons passed obedience rhythm. That is the standard required for royal formation. Calla looked up. Pain was not waived. Listening was. Velric's eyes cut toward her. You dislike command because you were never trusted with it. I dislike command when it teaches hurt bodies to move as if pain is a crime. A few handlers lowered their eyes. Soryn noticed. Calla noticed him noticing. The broken Ember Tuning Fork lay warm in her palm, but it did not speak for her. It had already shown one blank record. Now Calla needed the record Velric had written instead. Bring the discipline tally, she said. Velric's mouth tightened. Irrelevant. No, Calla said. If the pain record was left blank, then the pain was named somewhere else. The airy wind moved through crimson banners. No one laughed. Soryn looked to the senior handler. Bring it. The handler hesitated. Majesty, discipline tallies are internal conductor records. Then open them. The order struck the court harder than anger would have. The handler returned with a copper-bound board, marked by black scoring lines. It looked ordinary, almost dull. Calla knew better. Pain records asked what a dragon carried. Discipline tallies decided what a dragon deserved. Velric reached for it. Soryn took the board first and set it before Calla. No apology, no warmth. But the evidence no longer passed through Velric's hand. Calla opened the clasp. Each Eastern dragon had a column. Name, harness number, flight rhythm, obedience score, correction mark. She found Runeth's name. 3 correction marks this week, Calla said. Velric answered immediately. She resisted launch posture. She guarded her wing. She resisted. She hurt. The bronze dragon's eye opened wider, gold, dark, and exhausted. Calla held the broken fork above the first correction mark. Nothing. Above the second. A faint ember tremor. Above the third. The metal shivered with the same buried pressure she had heard beneath Runeth's harness groove. This correction was placed over pain, Calla said. Velric gave a short laugh. Broken metal answering a wounded dragon after launch proves nothing. Calla moved to the smoke-blue yearling's column. Then, it will not answer here. She held the fork over the mark labeled Launch Fear. The metal trembled. The yearling whimpered beneath his wing. Calla kept her face still. Rage would only help Velric call her unstable. This was shoulder pain, she said. Not fear. Velric's voice sharpened. Young dragons hesitate. Wounded dragons warn. Soryn stared at the copper board. How many? Calla looked across the eastern ledges. She did not exaggerate. Truth had to stay clean. 4 certain, she said. Maybe 5, if Velthar's silence was recorded as correction. The court shifted at the crown dragon's name. Velric stepped forward. The crown dragon is not part of a lower ledger dispute. Calla did not turn from Soryn. Pain does not become loyalty because it is carried higher. Soryn's face went still. Then he said, Bring Veilthar's record. Velric's composure cracked. Majesty, bring it. 2 guards carried down a black-scaled record book from beneath the crown ledge. Its clasp bore Soryn's royal flame and Velric's conductor wing. Calla did not touch it. You open it, she said to Soryn. His eyes narrowed. Why? If I touch it first, he will say I changed what he hid. For one breath, something like respect moved through his gaze. Then he opened the clasp himself. The first pages recorded Veilthar's victories, crown dives, mountain fire crossings, war turns, perfect command. Then came the recent entries. 3 marked throat resistance, 2 marked delayed flame response, 1 marked refusal to answer second horn. Each ended with the same phrase, dominance reinforcement successful. Calla felt the words around her own throat. Veilthar's nostrils flared on the high ledge. Soryn read the line once. Then again, Calla lifted the broken fork near the page. It trembled before touching the ink. Not dominance, she said. Throat pain. Veleric's voice cut coldly through the Aerie. Do not reduce the crown dragon to a whine in broken metal. Calla finally looked at him. You reduced him to silence and sold that silence as obedience. The fork brightened. She did not let it speak too soon. She named the sequence clearly. Eastern pain test record left blank. Ruineth's wing guarding marked as resistance. The yearling shoulder pain marked as launch fear. Veilthar's throat pain marked as dominance correction. Pain responses rewritten as discipline failures before formation clearance. Only then did the broken fork answer. Ember light crawled from the snapped metal across the copper tally, through the correction marks, and into Veilthar's black-scaled record. The air tightened with one thin, buried frequency, before a line burned above the open pages. Pain responses were recorded as disobedience, before royal formation was cleared. Soryn looked from Veilthar's throat record to Velric Orwain. His voice did not soften. Who taught my Aerie to punish pain as disobedience? The copper tally still glowed when Velric Orwain changed the shape of the accusation. He did not deny the Ember line. That would have been foolish now. Instead, he bowed to Dragon King Soryn Ash with the careful sorrow of a man pretending duty had wounded him too. Majesty, discipline is not cruelty. It is the language that keeps dragons alive in war. Pain cannot be allowed to decide flight duty. If every ache removed a dragon from formation, the High Dragon Aerie would become a nest of excuses. The word nest made several officers straighten. Excuses made them comfortable again. Calla Renn stood beside Veilthar's open record, with the broken fork warm in her palm. She felt the court trying to breathe Velric's version back into the room. Pain had sounded dangerous. Disobedience sounded manageable. Duty sounded noble enough to hide blood beneath it. Soryn looked at her, not gently, not apologetically. A king still balanced between what he had allowed and what he could no longer ignore. Answer him, he said. Calla did not soften for the command. War does not make pain false. Velric's mouth tightened. War makes pain irrelevant. The bronze dragon Ruineth gave one low, broken growl from the ledge. Not loud. Enough. Calla looked toward her. No. War makes hidden pain deadly. Soryn's gaze moved from Ruineth to the smoke-blue yearling, then to Veilthar's bound throat. What record comes after discipline? Velric answered too quickly. Flight duty confirmation. Calla looked at him. Small. Fast. Soryn saw it. Bring it, Soryn said. Velric turned sharply. Majesty, duty confirmation is a military readiness record. It is not lower listener territory. Calla did not look away from Soryn. Then let military readiness show what it carried. The order went out. A red-armored aide crossed to the duty table beneath the eastern horn tower. He returned with a long iron ledger clasped in black leather, its spine stamped with the royal flame and the conductor wing. The pages smelled of horn smoke, heated wax, and old pressure. Velric reached for it. Soryn took it first. Again. A small thing. A public thing. The court noticed. Calla noticed too, and refused to let her heart make it larger than it was. He set the ledger before her. Read. Calla opened to the eastern line. Names appeared in columns. Ruineth, Blackthorn, Veskar, the smoke-blue yearling named Aussie, and 3 more whose wing marks had already trembled against the fork. Each name carried a status stamp. Fit for royal formation. Fit for border demonstration. Fit for sail inspection. Calla stopped, not because she was surprised, because Velric had hidden the ugliness in plain ink. Soryn's voice sharpened. Sail inspection? Velric bowed. Border Lord's petition for trained dragons, Majesty. The inspection is contractual, not transfer. Calla turned a page. Then why is Ruineth marked for second inspection after crown flight? She is high value. She cannot lift cleanly. She can once discipline stabilizes posture. Calla held the broken fork over Ruineth's duty stamp. The metal shivered. She moved it to Aussie's mark. It shivered again. She moved it to Vaelthar's name at the bottom, listed not for sale, but for crown demonstration. The fork trembled before it touched the ink. Velric said, "Of course the fork reacts. You have taught it to answer distress." "No," Calla said. "I have taught myself not to ignore it." She turned back to Soryn. These duty stamps were placed after the correction marks. Velric spread one hand. "Correct. Discipline restored readiness." Calla's voice stayed even. "Discipline renamed pain. Then readiness used the new name." A silence moved through the Aerie. This one was different. No shock, understanding. Soryn looked down at the ledger. "Show me sequence." Calla laid the copper discipline tally beside the iron duty ledger. She did not let the fork burn ahead. She used the records first. Ruineth Guard's wing. Marked resistance. Correction successful. Fit for royal formation. Fit for border demonstration. She moved to Aussie. Shoulder trimmer. Marked launch fear. Correction successful. Fit for formation. Then to Vaelthar. Throat resistance. Dominance reinforcement successful. Crown demonstration cleared. Soryn's face did not change, but the air around him heated until ash lifted from the stone. Velric spoke quickly. "Majesty, these are standard chains of readiness. Without them, no army flies." Calla looked at the dragons. "Then your army is built on dragons learning how to fail quietly." Vaelthar's eye opened fully. The crown dragon looked not at Soryn, but at the duty ledger. Soryn saw it. Something old and dangerous moved behind his eyes. Calla lifted her broken fork, but she did not let the note rise. "Not yet. Release them from duty," she said. Velric laughed. "You do not have authority." "No," Calla said. "The pain does." The court stirred. Soryn's gaze cut to her. "What does that mean?" "It means I will not quiet the note while wounded dragons remain marked, fit for flight." Velric's face hardened. "Threatening the royal Aerie before the king is treason." Calla met Soryn's eyes. "Then call it what you want. But if the note stops before they are released, the records will be buried again." The fork began to hum, thin, contained. Every wounded dragon in the eastern line lifted its head or opened one eye. None rose. None healed. None became obedient. They only listened to the pain that had been allowed to exist. Soryn looked at the duty ledger, then at Velric, then at the dragons he had almost sent into formation because stillness had looked like strength. "Eastern line is released from royal flight duty," he said. Velric went still. "Majesty, until every pain." "Note is tested." Calla did not thank him. She named the order instead. Pain record left blank. Pain response marked as disobedience. Discipline correction marked successful. Duty stamp placed after correction. Wounded dragons cleared for royal formation, border demonstration, and sail inspection. Only then did the broken Ember Tuning Fork answer. The ember light crossed from the discipline tally into the iron duty ledger, burning through the fit-for-flight stamps one by one until a single line formed above the open pages. Wounded dragons were kept on flight duty after their pain was recorded as disobedience. Soryn looked from the duty ledger to Velric Orwyn. His voice did not soften. Who kept my wounded dragons flying for inspection after their pain was renamed? Velric Orwyn did not look at the wounded dragons when Soryn asked who kept them flying. He looked at the border lords. That told Calla Renn where the next record lived. The men, waiting beneath the crimson banners, had grown very still. They had come to witness royal formation, to see which dragons might one day be granted to their mountain keeps, war roads, and burning frontier towers. They wore polished armor and polite expressions, but their eyes kept drifting toward Ruineth's bronze body, toward Osie's smoke-blue wings, toward the black drake, whose cracked tooth no longer closed behind his jaw. Inspection had suddenly become visible. Velric bowed to Dragon King Soryn Ash. Majesty, border inspection is not sale. It is alliance readiness. Lords must see disciplined dragons before petitioning for wartime placement. Calla held the broken Ember Tuning Fork near the iron duty ledger. It hummed faintly but did not flare. She had not given it enough truth yet. Disciplined, she said. Velric's eyes sharpened. Yes, disciplined, not healthy. Health is included in readiness. No, Calla said. Health was left blank. Pain was renamed. Readiness was stamped over it. Soryn stood beside the duty ledger, ember gold eyes fixed on Velric. His face gave Calla nothing soft. No apology, no comfort. But his attention had changed. It no longer moved away from ugly evidence. What record follows inspection duty? He asked. Velric's answer came too fast. Border petition schedules. Calla looked at him. Small. Faust. Soryn saw it. Bring them, the king said. Velric's jaw tightened. Majesty, those schedules involve noble agreements. Then they involve royal danger. A clerk near the banner line hurried to a locked table and returned with a flat red case. Its brass hinges were shaped like dragon wings. Its seal bore the conductor mark, not the crown flame. Calla noticed. So did Soryn. Velric stepped forward. I will open it. No, Soryn said. The single word moved through the aerie like a drawn blade. The clerk set the case before Calla. She did not touch the seal first. She looked at Soryn. Your fire. His eyes narrowed. Then he pressed one armored thumb to the wax. Black flame melted through the conductor seal, exposing pages tied in red cord. Velric's face went cold. Calla opened the first schedule. Names of border houses. Inspection dates. Dragon candidates. Readiness. Valuations. Her fingers stopped on the fourth column. Obedience premium. She read. No one spoke. She turned the page. Ruineth's name was listed under Western Cliff Deployment. Osie, under River Pass Escort. Blackthorn, under Siege Intimidation. Each had a number beside the name, higher than ordinary placement value, because they did not break formation, because they had learned not to show pain. Soryn's voice lowered. What is obedience premium? Velric answered before Calla could. A standard readiness measure. Border lords pay more tribute for dragons proven steady under command. Calla looked at the wounded eastern line. Steady means silent. Steady means useful. The fork shivered in her hand. Not enough. Calla placed the border schedule beside the pain slate, the discipline tally, and the duty ledger. Show me the inspection demonstration order. The clerk flinched. Velric did not. That was worse. Soryn turned his head. Bring it. The clerk returned with a narrower page, written in dark brown ink. Calla knew the smell before she read it. Heated bit oil. Harness wax. The stuff used to seal command straps so dragons could not loosen them mid-flight. She read quickly. Eastern line to perform crown dive. Second horn turn, forced climb, and silent recovery. At the last phrase, Vaelthar's nostrils flared on the crown ledge. Silent recovery. Calla felt something cold pass under her ribs. Soryn looked up at his dragon. The crown dragon still did not move, but his silence had become unbearable. Velric spoke carefully. Silent recovery is a mark of control after exertion. Calla's voice stayed flat. It is a mark that no pain sound escapes after exertion. That is discipline. That is trained concealment. A border lord shifted under his cloak. Conductor Orwain assured us the eastern line had superior quiet response. The Aerie turned toward him. Velric's expression did not change, but his fingers curled once. Small, fast. Calla did not need the fork for that. Soryn's eyes burned hotter. Superior quiet response. The border lord swallowed. For mountain warfare, Majesty, quiet dragons draw fewer enemy arrows. Calla looked at the wounded dragons. Quiet dragons also die without warning. The fork hummed. She held it above Runeth's obedience premium mark. The metal trembled. Above Aussie's silent recovery order, it trembled harder. Above Veilthar's crown demonstration line, the note deepened, thin and pressured, as if the metal itself was struggling to breathe around a closed throat. Calla named the order before the fork could speak for her. Pain, test record blank. Pain response recorded as disobedience. Wounded dragons kept on duty. Border inspection scheduled after discipline correction. Obedience premium added for dragons who stayed silent under pain. Silent recovery ordered for demonstration before release. Velric said, "You are turning military value into accusation." Calla looked at him. "No, you turned pain into value." The words struck the Aerie silent. Only then did the broken Ember Tuning Fork answer. Ember light crawled from the snapped metal across the border schedules, through the obedience premium marks, and into the silent recovery order. The thin, buried frequency sharpened until every wounded dragon lifted its head. Not healed, not chosen, only heard. A line burned above the red case. Wounded dragons were marked more valuable after they were trained to hide pain. Soryn looked from the glowing valuation marks to Velric Orwain. His voice did not soften. "Who priced my dragons by how silently they suffered?" The border lords stopped looking like guests. Under the crimson banners of the High Dragon Aerie, their polished stillness became something colder. They had come to watch royal formation, not to hear the wounded dragons named aloud. They had come to measure wings, obedience, silence, and tribute value. Now every dragon on the eastern ledge watched them back. Calla Renn held the broken Ember Tuning Fork in one hand and the glowing border schedule beneath the other. Wounded dragons were marked more valuable after they were trained to hide pain. The Ember line faded slowly, but the shame it left did not. Dragon King Soryn Ash stood between the red case and the border lords. Black dragonbone armor catching the morning fire. "Who priced my dragons by how silently they suffered?" His voice did not soften. Velric Orwain bowed, as if the question wounded protocol more than truth. "Majesty, no dragon was priced. Tribute values are placement estimates, not sales." Calla looked down at Runeth's name beside the obedience premium. "Then bring the placement contracts." Velric's face sharpened. "Contracts are political instruments. They are weight for the same lie." A border lord cleared his throat. "Majesty, these agreements were drafted under normal Aerie custom." Soryn did not look at him. "Were dragons promised?" The man hesitated. That hesitation answered. Before language did. Calla watched Velric's fingers close behind his back. Small, fast. Soryn saw it. "Bring the contracts," he said. A clerk near the banner table turned pale. "Majesty, some carry border seals. Then they can burn open before border witnesses." The contracts came in a long bone case wrapped in red leather. It looked ceremonial enough to fool anyone who did not know how ugly useful paper could be. Calla did not touch the first seal. She waited. Soryn looked at her. "Again? If I open it, he will say I broke it wrong." Velric's mouth tightened. Soryn pressed his thumb to the wax. Black flame consumed the outer seal and left the pages clean. No apology, no softness, but the record opened under royal fire now. Calla unfolded the first contract. Runeth. Western Cliff deployment. Transfer after crown formation. Contingent on silent recovery demonstration. The bronze dragon's claws scraped the stone. Velric said. Transfer does not mean sale. Calla turned the page. Tribute exchange. 3 winter fire vaults. 2 border iron mines. 1 oath company. The court went still. Soryn's eyes darkened. For 1 dragon. For 1 dragon who does not cry out during pain. Calla said. Velric snapped. For 1 dragon who maintains formation under hardship. Calla looked at him. Hardship is weather. Pain is a warning. She opened the second contract. Aussie. River Pass Escort. Transfer after second horn endurance trial. The smoke-blue yearling pressed himself lower beneath his wing. Calla's voice nearly broke. She did not let it. The endurance trial was after his shoulder tremor was marked launch fear. Velric stepped forward. A young dragon must be tested before placement. No, Calla said. A wounded dragon must be rested before flight. Soryn looked to the yearling. Something in his face hardened past anger into recognition. He had commanded armies. He knew what it meant when the youngest soldiers were called eager, because no one wanted to admit they were afraid or hurt. Calla opened the third contract. Black Tharn. Siege intimidation. Transfer approved after tooth restraint correction. The old black drake's jaw shifted. The cracked tooth caught the light. Velric spoke quickly. His bite chain was adjusted for handler safety. Calla held the broken fork near the contract's correction mark. The metal trembled. Then she held it near Black Tharn's jaw from a careful distance. The same tremor answered. She did not touch him. She did not heal him. She only read the match. The tooth was cracked before restraint correction, she said. Soryn's voice dropped. And still he was cleared for transfer. Calla turned the contract toward him. After correction, Velric's mask began to thin. Majesty, the border requires dragons that can endure pain. Mountain war is not gentle. No, Calla said. You required dragons who could hide damage long enough to be accepted. The fork warmed. Not enough yet. Calla laid the 3 contracts beside the duty ledger. Discipline tally, pain slate, and border schedule. The papers formed a chain across the black stone. Velric's eyes followed the chain. He hated order when it did not belong to him. Calla pointed to Runeth's page. Pain record blank. Wing pain marked resistance. Correction marked successful. Duty confirmed. Silent recovery ordered. Transfer contract sealed after demonstration. She moved to Aussie. Shoulder pain marked fear. Duty confirmed. Endurance trial required. Transfer contract sealed. Then Black Tharn. Cracked tooth restrained. Correction marked handler safety. Siege transfer approved. A border lord muttered. We were told they were elite. Calla looked at him. They are. The lord flinched. They are elite because they kept flying after your contracts made their pain profitable. The Aerie fell silent. Velric said, Careful, lower, listener. Calla did not look away from the papers. You have called me lower enough times to forget. I am the only one who heard what was above you. The fork's ember note sharpened. Veilthar lifted his head a little on the crown ledge. Not toward Calla as a mate. Not toward Soryn as a weapon. Toward the records. Soryn saw it. His jaw tightened. Calla named the sequence clearly. Pain left untested. Pain renamed disobedience. Wounded dragons kept on duty. Silence marked valuable. Border contracts sealed after silent pain demonstrations. Transfer values raised by obedience under injury. Only then did the broken Ember Tuning Fork answer. The ember light ran through the placement contracts, burning across the tribute lines without consuming the pages. The thin frequency rose beneath the words until every wounded dragon in the eastern line opened its eyes. A line formed above the contracts. Border transfer contracts were sealed after wounded dragons were valued for silent endurance. Soryn looked from the burning contracts to Velric Orwain. His voice did not soften. Who sold endurance that was really pain? The tribute lines glowed like fresh wounds across the contracts. Border transfer contracts were sealed after wounded dragons were valued for silent endurance. No one moved toward the dragons now. Not the border lords. Not the trainers. Not even the handlers who had spent years pretending silence meant readiness. The eastern ledges were filled with eyes. Bronze, smoke, blue, black, silver, gold. Eyes that had flown under command, because pain had been made less important than profit. Velric Orwain turned from the glowing contracts to Calla Renn. At last, he stopped pretending the danger was in the records. He made the danger her majesty, he said. She is no lower listener. That broken fork is carrying forbidden ember resonance. The court inhaled as one body. Forbidden always sounded cleaner than guilty. Calla held the snapped Ember Tuning Fork at her side. The metal hummed faintly, thin as breath through a closed throat. Soryn Ash looked at her, not softly, not with trust untested. "What does he mean?" the Dragon King asked. Velric answered first. Hold Ember listening was banned from military Aeries because it unsettles dragons. It makes them mistake discomfort for injury and obedience for harm. Calla almost laughed, not because it was funny, because powerful men loved banning the thing that made pain visible, then calling invisibility peace. It was banned from royal ceremonies, she said, not from care ledgers. Velric's eyes brightened with triumph. So, you admit you used it. I admit I listened. You corrupted flight readiness. I recorded what your horns buried. Soryn's gaze moved to the fork. Can it be quieted? Yes, Calla said. Velric stepped forward. Then order her to do it before more dragons fall out of command. Calla looked to the ledges. Not only the eastern line anymore. Beyond them, dragons from the northern stalls had lifted their heads. 2 fire-red war drakes along the western arch were shifting uneasily. A pale ash dragon chained near the upper training ring held one wing close to his spine. The note had reached farther than Velric wanted anyone to see. Soryn saw where she looked. Velric saw it too. Calla lifted the broken fork. I will quiet it. When every dragon forced into flight duty is released for pain testing. A hiss went through the officers. Velric's voice sharpened. You do not command the royal Aerie. No, Calla said. Pain does. Soryn's face did not change, but the air around him heated. Velric turned to him quickly. Majesty, if you release every dragon reacting to her note, border defense weakens before the lords who rely on your protection. Calla looked at the border lords. They relied on dragons they were told could suffer silently. One lord lowered his eyes. Another did not. Velric seized the opening. This is sedition. She uses forbidden resonance to turn dragons against duty. Calla felt the trap closing. Not pain now. Fear of disorder. The same old shape. Soryn looked at her. Can you prove the note comes from pain, not manipulation? Calla met his eyes. Bring my listener ledger. Velric went still. Small. Fast. Too late. Soryn saw it. Where is it? He asked. Velric's answer came clean. Confiscated. Calla's fingers tightened around the fork. She had known. Still, hearing it aloud struck like a hand to the ribs. Soryn's voice lowered. By whose order? Mine, Velric said. After repeated interference with formation discipline, Calla looked at him. Before or after the Eastern pain test slate was left blank? Velric did not answer. The broken fork hummed once. Not enough. Calla kept it quiet with her grip. Bring the ledger, Soryn said. A guard went to the conductor archive and returned with a soot-gray book bound in plain leather. Calla had written in it for 3 weeks, with charcoal, ember ash, and hands that shook from tiredness. It looked smaller in the guard's grip than it had ever felt in hers. Velric reached for it. Soryn took it first. By now, the court understood the meaning. The record would not pass through the hand that had hidden it. Soryn set the ledger before Calla. Read. She opened the first page. Ruineth. Left wing strain under second horn rhythm. Do not launch eastern line until pain note clears. Osai. Shoulder tremor beneath harness pull. Rest before formation. Black Tharn. Cracked rear tooth under restraint bit. Remove chain before siege display. Her throat tightened when she turned to the last page. Veilthar. Throat containment under gold crown harness. Silence increases after command horn. Do not use second horn until throat frequency is tested. Soryn read the final entry over her shoulder. The heat around him vanished. That frightened the court more than flame. Velric said, "Private speculation." Calla turned the page. A conductor rejection stamp covered her recommendation. Formation disruption risk. Below it, another line had been added in a sharper hand. Confiscate tuning instrument before crown ascent. The Aerie went quiet. Soryn stared at the ink. Velric's jaw worked once. A precaution. Calla looked up. No, a decision. She placed the listener ledger beside the blank pain slate, discipline tally, duty ledger, border contracts, and broken fork halves. Then she named the order clearly. Pain recorded before launch. Rest recommended. Veilthar's throat containment noted. Listener warnings rejected as formation disruption. Ledger confiscated. Tuning instrument ordered removed before crown ascent. Fork snapped when I warned the court. Only then did the broken Ember Tuning Fork answer. Ember light crossed the gray listener ledger and burned through the conductor rejection stamp without harming Calla's writing. A thin frequency rose from the pages, and every dragon forced into flight duty turned toward the sound. Not healed, not freed, only recognized. A line formed above the ledger. Calla Renn's pain warnings were confiscated before the Ember Tuning Fork was broken. Soryn looked from her ledger to Velric Orwain. His voice did not soften. Who ordered her silence before my dragons were forced to fly? The northern stalls began to stir. That was when the court understood the note had gone farther than the eastern ledges. Chains scraped against black stone. Red fire drakes lifted their heads from shadowed arches. A pale ash dragon near the upper ring opened one clouded eye and turned toward Calla Renn's gray listener ledger. The broken Ember Tuning Fork did not grow louder. It did not need to. Pain had never needed volume. It only needed one place where it was no longer punished. Velric Orwain looked across the Aerie and saw control slipping out of every stall. "Majesty," he said. "This is exactly why her instrument was confiscated. The note is spreading disorder through the entire Aerie." Calla held the broken fork close to her side. "No. It is spreading recognition." Soryn Ash stood over the listener ledger, the confiscation order still glowing beneath the ember line. His face was unreadable. No apology, no softness, but his eyes had not left Veilthar's final entry. Throat containment, under gold crown harness. Silence increases after command horn. Velric stepped toward the eastern horn tower. The note must be quieted before every dragon begins reacting to imagined injury. Calla moved before he reached the stair. 2 guards shifted, but Soryn lifted one hand. They stopped. Velric looked at her with a cold smile. "You will block royal correction now. I will block another cover. You have no authority. Then why are you afraid of what I can hear?" The court went still. Velric's smile disappeared. Soryn's voice cut through the wind. "What is in the horn tower?" Velric bowed. "Emergency second horn override. Standard safeguard when dragons refuse formation." Calla felt the fork tremble against her palm. Not at Velric. At the words. Second Orn. Veilthar's great throat tightened on the crown ledge. The gold harness straps creaked softly. Calla turned toward Soryn. "Do not let him sound it." Velric snapped. "There. She admits she fears royal command." "No," Calla said. "I fear what your command hides." Soryn's gaze moved between them. "Explain." Calla pointed to Veilthar's record. His throat pain worsened after second horn. The ledger says do not use it until tested. Velric's voice hardened. The crowned dragon has answered second horn since your father's reign. And that is why no one questioned it, Calla said. Soryn looked toward the horn tower. Bring the second horn override record. Velric went very still. Small. Fast. Calla saw it. Soryn saw her see it. A guard climbed the tower and returned with a narrow bronze tube, sealed in black wax, and marked with Velric's conductor wing. Soryn broke the wax himself and set the scroll before Calla. She opened it carefully. The broken fork hummed once, then quieted. It would not read for her, not before she found the line herself. The scroll listed override uses for the coming royal formation. Eastern line. If instability appears, sound second horn to restore obedience. Northern stalls. Hold under reserve command. Crown dragon. Second horn to seal throat response before demonstration. Calla's fingers stopped. Seal throat response. Not guide. Not steady. Seal. Soryn read the phrase over her shoulder. The heat around him vanished again. Velric spoke quickly. Technical language. A throat response is flame instability. Sealing it prevents dangerous misfire. Calla looked up at Veilthar. Then why was my pain test recommendation confiscated before this was scheduled? Velric did not answer. The fork warmed. Calla placed the override scroll beside Veilthar's record and her listener ledger. Show me the release orders, a senior handler whispered. Release orders? Calla kept her eyes on Velric. If second horn is an emergency measure, there should be release orders for dragons who fail pain response. Velric's face hardened. Dragons are not released because a lower listener dislikes a horn. Soryn turned to the handler. Bring the release orders. The handler returned too quickly. With one page. Blank. A blank page could look innocent. If no one had learned how records disappeared. Calla had learned. She set the blank release order beside the override scroll. No wounded release prepared, Velric said. Because release was unnecessary. No, Calla said. Because second horn was meant to force them past the moment release would be required. A ripple moved through the handlers. Some had known. Some had suspected. None had said it where Velric could hear. Calla lifted the broken fork over the blank release order. Nothing. Over the second horn scroll. A thin tremor. Over Veilthar's throat entry. The note deepened until every dragon in the Aerie lowered its head or shifted its wings. Not obedience. Not worship. Recognition traveling through bodies that had been trained not to answer pain. Velric lunged for the horn stare. Soryn moved faster. The Dragon King caught Velric by the back of his conductor collar and drove him to his knees on the black stone. The court gasped. Calla did not. She was watching the horn. A junior conductor had already reached it. His hand hovered over the bronze mouth. Calla raised the broken fork. Do not sound it. The young man shook. He ordered. Soryn's voice struck like fire. Step away. The junior conductor stepped back. Only then did Calla speak the sequence. Pain warnings recorded. Listener ledger confiscated. Tuning instrument ordered removed. Wounded dragons kept on duty. Border contracts sealed. Second, horn override prepared. Veilthar's throat response scheduled to be sealed. No release orders prepared for dragons who failed pain response. The fork answered. Ember light ran from Calla's ledger into the second horn scroll and across the blank release page. The thin frequency sharpened until the horn tower itself gave a low answering groan. A line burned above the bronze scroll. Second horn override was prepared to force wounded dragons past release before border demonstration. Soryn looked from the glowing scroll to Velric Orwain, still kneeling beneath his hand. His voice did not soften. Who raised my crown horn against dragons that should have been released? The horn tower groaned as if bronze could feel shame. Every dragon in the High Dragon Aerie had turned toward the second horn scroll, not in worship, not in rebellion, but in the terrible stillness of creatures waiting to learn whether pain would be punished again. Chains hung slack against black stone. Wings stayed folded. The air smelled of ember smoke, old leather, and fear finally stripped of ceremony. Velric Orwain knelt beneath Soryn Ash's hand, his bronze conductor collar bent where the king had seized it. Still, he smiled. "You cannot release them all," Velric said. "Not before border witnesses. Not before crown demonstration. If the Aerie appears weak, every lord here will question your command." Soryn looked across the ledges. Runeth's injured wing trembled. Ossie kept his shoulder low. Blackthorn's cracked tooth gleamed through half-closed jaws. Veilthar stood on the crown ledge, with his throat bound in gold, silent not from discipline, but from containment everyone now understood. Calla Renn held the broken Ember Tuning Fork in both hands. The note still lived there. Fin. Patient. Waiting. Soryn's voice was low. "How many release orders?" Calla looked at the blank page beside the second horn scroll. "None prepared." "Then write them." The court froze. Velric's smile died. A senior officer stepped forward. "Majesty, a full release from flight duty requires conductor approval." Soryn turned his ember gold eyes on him. "Then conductor approval has failed its purpose." Calla did not thank him. She had no room for gratitude while dragons still stood bound under pain. "Release orders first," she said. "Then harness loosening, then pain tests. No horn command until every throat and wing note is read." The officer stared at her. Soryn did not. "Do it," he said. The scribes moved. Not quickly at first. Then faster when Veilthar lifted his head and the crown ledge cracked beneath one claw. Release pages were brought. Names were entered. Ruineth, Ossie, Blackthorn, 3 eastern drakes, 2 northern fire reds, the pale ash dragon in the upper ring, then Veilthar. At the crown dragon's name, the entire Aerie seemed to hold its breath. Velric's voice sharpened. "You cannot release the crown dragon from demonstration. He is the symbol of your reign." Soryn looked up at Veilthar. For the first time that morning, the Dragon King's face broke not into softness, but into something harsher. Recognition. "No," he said. "He is the creature my reign used." The words struck harder than flame. Calla felt them, and refused to let them heal what they had not yet repaired. "Gold throat harness off," she said. A royal handler hesitated. Soryn climbed the crown stairs himself. The Aerie watched its king ascend toward the dragon. Everyone had called perfectly obedient. Veilthar did not lower his head to make it easy. Soryn had to reach, had to work at the gold clasps with armored fingers, had to stand close enough to hear the breath that had been sealed under command. The first clasp opened. Veiltar, Shudale. Not violently, just enough for the ledge to shed black dust. The second clasp broke loose. A sound came from the crown dragon's throat. Not a roar, not a command. Answer. A rough, damaged exhale that made every handler below go pale. Calla's broken fork trembled in her hands. She did not raise it. This pain did not need display. Soryn removed the final strap and lowered it to the stone, as if setting down a weapon he had carried unknowingly for years. Velric screamed. "He will not answer you now." Veilthar turned his vast head. Not to Calla, not to the court. Tol Soryn. The dragon opened his jaws and breathed one thread of black ember across the broken gold harness. The strap melted. Velric's last authority over the crowned dragon died without ceremony. Calla finally lifted the fork. Pain warnings recorded. Listener ledger confiscated. Tuning instrument broken. Wounded dragons kept on duty. Border contracts sealed for silent endurance. Second horn prepared to force them past release. Release orders now signed. Crown harness removed. Pain testing restored before command. The broken Ember Tuning Fork answered one final time. Ember light crossed every release order, every old correction mark, every duty stamp, every contract, every page that had tried to make suffering useful. The sound did not rise into music. It remained a frequency, clear, narrow, impossible to beautify. A line burned across the air before the entire Aerie. Aerie law gives pain listeners authority above conductors when dragons carry hidden pain. The dragons heard it first. Runeth lowered her head. Aussie unfolded his wing just enough to breathe. Black Tharn opened his jaw without the bit chain pulling it shut. One by one, the wounded dragons eased out of the posture command, had forced into their bones. Not healed, released. That was enough for the note to quiet. Velric lunged toward the contracts, but Soryn descended the crown stairs and struck the conductor collar from his throat with one blow of his black gauntlet. Bronze hit stone and split down the center. Aerie conductor Velric Orwain is stripped of command, Soryn said. Every border contract tied to silent endurance is void. Every trainer who recorded pain as disobedience will answer before the Dragon Court. No horn may override a pain. Listeners hold. No dragon may fly after a blank pain record. A border lord began. Majesty, our agreements. Soryn looked at him. The lord stopped. Then Soryn turned to Calla. The Aerie quieted differently now. He came down the last steps and stood before her. No throne between them, no horn, no conductor speaking over her. I let him break your tool, he said. Calla held the two snapped halves. Yes, I asked for proof, only after my dragon screamed. Yes, I called silence strength, because it served my crown. Yes, he did not ask forgiveness. That was why she did not walk away. Instead, Soryn removed his royal flight ring and set it beside the broken fork on the black stone. Command waits below listening, he said. Calla looked at the dragons first, then at the lower handlers whose hands were shaking from years of doing what they were told. The listeners sign the release ledger first, she said. Soryn nodded. Yes, and the wounded stay grounded until their notes clear. Yes, and no border lord touches a dragon record before the pain ledger is read. Yes, only then did Calla kneel not to the king, but beside the broken fork. She picked up both halves. They did not mend. She was glad. Some broken things should remain visible until everyone remembered why they broke. At dusk, the High Dragon Aerie sounded different. No second horn. No forced rhythm. Only low dragon breathing. Chain locks being loosened, and soot-stained listeners reading pain notes before commanders were allowed near the ledges. Calla signed the first restored pain ledger. Soryn signed beneath her name. Later, when she walked the eastern ledge with ember dust on her hands, the Dragon King followed one step behind, carrying the broken gold throat harness where every officer could see it. He did not claim her. He did not crown her. He walked beneath the dragons who had trusted the woman. He let them silence, and for the first time, the High Dragon Aerie learned that obedience was not proof of health.